Hola a todos, bienvenidos a un nuevo podcast de Chasing Alpha. El día de hoy estamos muy emocionados porque tenemos con nosotros a Forrest Hayes. Este va a ser un podcast en inglés, pero para eso les vamos a dejar acá abajo la traducción en simultáneo. So Forrest, welcome to Guatemala. We're really happy to have you here. Forrest is the Vice President of Fund Launch. That's the program where Santiago and myself developed our own funds, and he's also a fund manager. So Forrest, tell us a little bit about your background.
Sure. So currently I work for Fund Launch. As mentioned, I run the Black Card program. We help, well, our mission is very simple. We're trying to help democratize Wall Street. We do that through three pillars: education, incubation, and allocation. So that's my day job. And then on top of that, I'm also a fund director with the Chang Robotics Fund. Mm-hmm. And previous to that, I was an investment banker at Standard Chartered Bank, where I spent 12 years there. I was the head of North America for banks and broker-dealers, running those relationships. And then in Singapore, I spent 7 years as the COO for the for the Financial Institutions Group. And before that, I was with Janus Capital Group, the large fund manager out of Denver, Colorado. Spent 5 years in Hong Kong, working with some of the largest governments in Asia Pacific, as well as all the intermediaries like HSBC, Citibank, and others. And before that, I was in Denver, Colorado with Janus, and also got into funds before that, where I lived in Ireland, and classically trained accountant from Arthur Andersen. So I'll stop there.
Yeah, so the concept of the democratizing Wall Street is a really cool concept. Yes. It's one I didn't hear before coming into the Fund Launch program. So why the need to democratize Wall Street?
Education. We start there. So we want to make high finance available to all. You don't need a Harvard or Ivy League education to be an entrepreneur or to scale your business. And what we're doing is helping to educate people to launch a fund, whether it's a single asset fund or a syndication or through a fund itself. And the United States has a very strong regulatory environment that enables the entrepreneur to scale their business.
Yeah, and that's where Santiago and I came in from. We Googled Fund Launch practically, and that's where we met you guys, and here we are.
Here we are. And what would you say that we were discussing the other day with you that it's really necessary? It's the best way to scale a project, to scale an idea.
Yes.
It's through funds. And
100%.
We really matched with the democratized Wall Street concept because it's our goal, it's our mission to promote, to increase the wealth and the wealth generation of our region.
Yes.
So what would you say it's needed from the regulatory standpoint to promote this fund culture abroad?
I think the first step is to establish an association. I think we were talking a little bit about that, whether it's the Guatemalan Fund Association or a Central American Regional Fund Association, something along the lines that can help promote and establish a self-governing body to direct how things should be governed and regulated so that you create a fair, transparent, trusted environment where people can help grow their business. That's it. And then figure out a way to tax yourself so that the government receives their share. Just do it yourself. Don't let them tell you what to do. Otherwise, you find yourself in a situation where you're taking orders as opposed to educating and suggesting and promoting.
I love that concept.
Yeah, and going in the line of education, if you could tell us a little bit about Fund Launch. I think it's a program where me as a Guatemalan citizen, I don't have a US passport, and I was able to get educated, and now I have my own fund, as does Santiago and yourself. So tell us a little bit about the program of Fund Launch and how is it available to our viewers?
Sure. So technology is a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
There's no borders with technology. And so with that, Fund Launch is a series of videos that help educate people on what is a fund. Mm-hmm. And it's in a framework. We use frameworks and sub-frameworks because it gives the playing field or the guardrails for individuals to learn how to become a business person and a fund manager. And so we've created this mega framework through Fund Launch with Bridger Pennington, who's the founder and co-founder of Mason Brains. And the Fund Launch framework is broken down into 4 phases. Those 4 phases, the first one is basically coming up with your investment thesis. What is your idea? What is your business? What is your plan? And then we have coaching around that to help refine that and improve it. And coaching is the backbone of the program because we have 22, 23 or so coaches who across every single asset class and different skill sets from Tom Coben, who you probably hear from later, who's a professional speaking coach, to Stephen Hall, who's a professional tax person, to Scott Hoffman, who does sales and marketing, for example. And then once you get through phase 1 into phase 2, we talk about the fund framework. How do you construct your fund? How do you build it? And then we help you with that. The architecture, we do it with you and help educate you along the way. And then from there, it's capital raising. And then from there, it's the fund launch. And that's where you go into and fill out what we call your fund waffle. So the fund waffle is basically all the relationships you need in order to successfully manage a fund. And so as part of my job, I help curate a best-in-breed agnostic ecosystem of preferred partners who give us a discounted price so that you, as a Fund Launch Black Card member, are able to get collectively as part of our community than you would otherwise as an individual, because we have numbers. We've got the largest private fund manager community in the USA, maybe the world, and it's roughly 12 to 1,300 members strong, plus the teams of people behind them.
Yeah.
And we've doubled that in the last year. We're going to double it again. And we're quickly and very soon launching what we're calling a single asset fund program or product as part of our enterprise product suite. So that way we can help individuals do deals. You need to go through multiple deal cycles in order to become proficient and learn all the lessons you need to learn when being a professional business person. So real estate, let's use an easy example that everybody here in the country probably invests in real estate.
Yes.
So when you start buying and selling real estate, you learn all the nitty-gritty details that come with that. All the pitfalls, all the mistakes. You've got to learn them. There's no shortcuts. You just have to do deals. So what we're doing is enabling our members to then go and do single asset funds so that they can do one deal at a time till they get to the point where it's like, well, I don't want to do one deal. I want to do 10 or 100. So as one of our most successful members, he was buying and selling 4 houses a year. And he was making good money. So then he joined Black Card and he did 42 houses the next year.
Tenfold.
Right? So he went from basically flipping houses with no assets under management, so to speak, to now he's got over $150 million in real estate.
Imagine that, the power of a fund. Creo que estamos teniendo una clase maestra de parte de Forrest. Lo que nos está explicando es cómo funciona el programa de Black Card y Fund Launch y cuál es la estructura. Nos está explicando además su experiencia y su rol dentro de esto. Y una cosa muy importante es en la línea, viniendo de Forrest, tiene muchísimo valor de lo que hablábamos en otro podcast con Frederick, que es el tema del primer dólar. Lo que nos está explicando Forrest es háganse hábiles haciendo tratos. Lo que hablamos, atrévanse a equivocarse. Y lo que está diciendo es eso. Esta persona hizo 4 tratos en un año. Estaba comprando y vendiendo propiedades. Hoy se unió al programa, hizo un fondo ya teniendo un negocio y ahora el hombre tiene $150 millones bajo su manejo. Esa es la belleza de un fondo de inversión. Crece. Es una manera de escalar una idea. Thank you, Forrest.
So Santiago was talking about the first dollar, the importance of the first dollar. And one of the things that that Fund Launch did for me is that they don't let you go into legal unless you have a business.
That's right.
Unless you have a proven business. What's the importance of having first a proven business before going into legal, taxes, and everything else? Because many people, they fund a launch and they don't know if they're going to be successful or not.
Correct. Just because you launch a fund doesn't mean you're going to be successful.
Yeah.
And what is a fund? A fund is literally just a pool of money. That's all it is. Let's demystify what a fund is. It's that simple.
Yeah, and something else is the structure, because what you guys did for me, I already had a proven business,
right?
But I was able to scale through Fund Launch, and also you gave me the structure.
Correct.
It was a really good learning experience, because my background was in marketing. I have no idea of some of the legal structures and the tax structures that I needed to go through. So it was a really nice learning experience. This all may sound a little bit complicated for our audience, but it's really not. And you guys do an excellent job of taking us a step at a time. I remember during my first meeting with lawyers, I quitted 3 times during the call. It sounded all so complicated until I had my papers and looked at them. And so this is all fancy words. You were able to simplify them for me so I could understand them as a Guatemalan.
Right.
Yeah, that was
really
important. Magical.
I mean, look, it's an education, and they don't teach this in universities, which is why we're teaching it. And we're working now, we've started our own internship program. And so we're working with all of the major universities across the United States at the moment to give young people
the opportunity
to work inside of funds. And we're giving them an education through our Fund Academy for free. So we're educating them, giving them the videos, saying, here's what it means to, what's a fund, how to become a fund manager, et cetera. And there is a whole language around it, to your point.
But if we get to teach people that language and they come to understand it,
correct,
they will be fluent in a short while, and then they will be able to understand all the lingos and all the nuances of the business deal, of the structure.
That's it.
And once you focus like that, in my experience, when someone like you who explains these complicated concepts with such an ease, the value that it transmits is that anyone can understand it, and then they learn the language, and then they become proficient into building their dreams and projects. Because we were discussing the other day with Frederick that every project begins in the brain. It's an idea.
Yes.
And that's the beauty of what your guys are doing, and what we aim to contribute here too.
Yeah, and you know, we see I see some of the best private deal flow in the world. It's amazing. And in a very short matter of time, the inertia coming from this experience will attract meaningful capital from family offices, other high net worth individuals, and accredited investors. We have a capital committee call later today, and I've got 2 new family offices that are coming on board. So we do this for free. I invite my friends, I invite family offices, they come and get to hear a couple of deals pitched. We don't charge any fees because we're trying to help our members become successful. Raising capital is hard, and you need to have a trusted environment, a transparent environment that is tried and proven time and time again. We've helped over 400 people launch funds successfully over the last 5 years.
You told me, we were talking, when you told me that your expertise was also the deepening of international financial markets.
Correct. So
what role does it play? Why, I would like to explain to the audience why it's so important to have an active, growing capital market to develop a country.
Great question. Arguably the most important question. If you look at the United States, which isn't perfect by any means, but it is by far the deepest financial markets. from the stock exchanges, the bond market, and so on. Every single asset class. Private credit, which wasn't even an asset class probably 10 years ago, is now over $2 trillion. They have stepped in and filled the gap for banks and other providers. Private credit is the fastest growing asset class out there. So deepening financial markets comes in multiple ways, shapes, and forms. Funds is just one mechanism or vehicle to help that. And so when I was working in Asia with a bank, I went into countries like Malaysia and Indonesia and the Philippines to help explain to their regulators what it means to deepen their financial markets. Because the large asset managers of the world, BlackRock, PIMCO, Franklin Templeton, you name it, they manage trillions of dollars, and they run them in accordance with an index. So in all the emerging market indices, they have to buy government bonds, for example. So when they're doing that, there's exchange rates, there's different types of risk you have to manage. So you want to try and mitigate all the risks for fund managers in order for them to feel comfortable and buy more of whatever it is that you're selling. In this case, we're talking about government bonds. In your case, we could be talking about real estate, okay? Yes. So from that perspective, it was quite simple to say, well, here's the most efficient way to do that. And we helped create what we called the ABC trade, or the trifecta. And that is when you take a US dollar and convert it to a foreign currency, you have that exchange rate. Take that same exchange rate and then hedge whatever fixed income product that you're purchasing. In this case, it's a bond, a government bond, so that there's no market risk or currency risk with that transaction. So that way, there's no float, meaning neutral. Right. So PIMCO comes in, they buys an Indonesian government bond, they take their dollars, convert it to the local currency, and when doing that conversion, they're able to then hedge their government bond exposure as any good fixed income manager would, and do it with the same exchange rate. That way you eliminate
the risk of the volatility in the...
Correct. But what that translates into is more better performance for the fund. So there's less tracking error because there's no currency risk in this particular case. So if you apply this to real estate, if you're using local currency, if US dollars are coming into Guatemala and you're using local currency, you would want to try and hedge that position if you can.
Of course. Well, just, like a good thing to know is Guatemala has by far one of the most stable exchange rates in the planet. We have been between 770 and 830 for the last 20 years.
Okay.
So that's something for you to take into account, because our job as fund managers is mitigating risk.
Correct.
Or as you very accurately state, finding asymmetrical risk where you can give your investors a bigger return with a lower risk. That's where the value generation actually resides.
100%. The best fund managers in the world understand that concept clearly, and that is asymmetrical risk. How can you spot an opportunity, execute on that opportunity, and capture the alpha before anybody else sees it? It's right there, and everybody has the same eyes and ears, right? So it's right there. It's just what you do with that information. And if you're able to execute on it quicker, better, more efficiently, you can return better performance and capital to your shareholders. And that's what a fund is supposed to do. It generates alpha.
That's what this whole program is, chasing alpha.
Yeah, that's what we're all about. And we were talking about a Central American Fund Association next door.
Yes.
What would be the advantages of having such an association in Central America?
Sure. So when you look at Europe or Asia, you want to hang together. You want to learn the lessons so that you don't repeat history unnecessarily. So get it right the first time. That's my first suggestion. And then from there, for example, if Panama or another geographic location has an established fund platform and a regulatory environment and associations that you can work with, learn from, and grow from, that would be ideal. And when I was living in Singapore, for example, we helped build out the fund association there, helped lobby the government and the regulators to build out a more competitive fund platform to attract asset managers to Singapore as a fund domicile. That's the key. You want to attract foreign managers while encouraging local entrepreneurs
to adhere to
that platform.
Would you please expand on the Irish Fund Association, your experience with this fund? It's really interesting, and the growth that it had. I think it's valuable for our
No, it's amazing.
audience.
So I lived in Ireland. I moved there. I'm dating myself here. This is back in March of 2000. And, it was just a fledgling, small fund center that had big goals and dreams and aspirations. And we were starting, from zero technically, but, they had a head start. And since then, it's grown to over $2 trillion in assets under administration. And they were chasing Luxembourg all the time. And, they've done an amazing job in becoming the Anglo-Saxon gateway to Europe. And they're a great example of what you can do in a couple of decades to go from zero to hero.
Le pedí que explicara la experiencia de la Asociación de Fondos Irlandesa porque están manejando, y quiero que pongan los ceros en un papel, 2 millones de dólares desde el 2004 a hoy, 20 añitos. ¿Ustedes imaginan lo que eso puede hacer por nuestra región?
And it scales quickly. It's one of those things. It just keeps growing. And as the markets perform, as the markets deepen, right?
They get
Imagine
more liquid.
0 to 2 trillion. That's deep.
That's really deep and really fast.
Correct. That's a half of a generation.
Yeah, and you were talking about attracting managers into the region.
Yes.
What would that do for our region? Because I think it's really important for our audience to understand the importance of what we're trying to achieve here.
It's the right question. It's a great question. And every country should have the ambition to deepen their financial market and then use every tool and lever to do so. Funds is by far the best way to do it, in my opinion, not only because I've been in it since 1998, but it's proven. And if you look at the US fund market, I want to say it's over what? So BlackRock manages over $10 trillion. That's one asset manager.
10 trillion.
BlackRock, 10 trillion. Vanguard's next. They manage 10 trillion.
Vanguard.
State Street, Global Advisors, they're next. They're what, 9 trillion? So between the top 5 US asset managers, they manage over 30 trillion US dollars. Think about that. It's mind blowing.
It is.
It's the size of the national debt of the states.
That's right.
It is huge.
Correct. That's a deep financial market.
Yes. And that's what we need to do.
And so as we try to democratize that, all that means is that we're making high finance available to all. We don't want a monopoly. We don't want one fund manager owning everything. We want to encourage entrepreneurship through education and through doing deals so that eventually they can grow into a fund, so that they can scale. It creates jobs. It pays taxes. It does all these amazing things.
Yeah, the taxes thing is really important because we were talking about the income that these countries could have through taxes.
Generate.
Correct. Yeah. A 10 basis point tax on assets under administration, which goes to the funds directly. It's nothing. You don't even feel 10 basis points, but at scale, that pays for schools and roads and education.
Infrastructure. Ports, airports.
And that's what we were discussing in the other room. The importance of why does a tax need to be expensive? It needs to be sufficient.
Correct.
Not expensive. Yeah. Because that way, the incentive is to pay it in full with ease.
Correct.
And
use it for that
what
industry.
It's meant, yes.
To continue to deepen that industry.
Yeah.
It's a self-fulfilling prophecy when you get it right. And
Absolutely.
Ireland is a great example. The United States is a great example. Luxembourg, great example. Singapore, great example.
Hopefully Central America in the near
Central
future,
America
Forrest.
in the near future.
Well, we're going to do our best.
That's it.
Yeah, that's...
You're already doing a great job. We're having the conversation.
Yes.
That's the most important thing. And having people understand what is alpha as we chase it is the right, it's the perfect name.
Yeah. So let's talk about a little bit about your fund, because I didn't know you had a fund. Well, I assumed you had a fund, but I didn't know what it did.
Sure. It's a venture capital fund. Mm-hmm. I am working with Matthew Chang, who's an engineer, entrepreneur, genius. And we're looking at addressing three major things in the United States. And that is environmental remediation, energy efficiency, and labor shortage. And we're doing that through robotics and automation and technology. And we're going across different industries because it leverages itself and lends itself naturally to them. I'll give you an example. So we wrote a white paper on hospitals and the nursing shortage. So after COVID, we had the great resignation. So a lot of nurses quit. They couldn't take it anymore. Don't blame them.
Couldn't.
Right? So we estimated that approximately 900 million hours of nursing evaporated from our society. Who's going to fill that? What do you do? What do you do when your hospitals don't have nurses? It's a problem.
It's a huge problem.
So we built a robot and we put it in to the Mayo Clinic. They'll be doing an announcement later. So we took one of the biggest brand names out there in hospitals, and we designed a robot to help eliminate the labor shortage. And we think that we can help save up to 900 million hours across our hospitals by simply having these robots, which use an elevator. They go up and down floors. They deliver whatever you need, food, for an x-ray, whatever the gown is, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And they have filled a gap. And we had a test run. We had 100% adoption in 24 hours from every single nurse. And now they say they can't live without it. And we started a new company off the back of that called CureBots.
CureBots.
Yeah. So we're hoping to cure not only the labor shortage, but think about all the injuries that come with that labor. So every single nurse, they have special nursing shoes because they're on their feet. Some nurses get up to 40,000 steps a day because they're running back and forth all day long. We've been able to stop all of that. They don't have to lift things anymore, right? I mean, think about never mind the labor shortage, think about there's less injury. There's less missed work. So that's one example. The next example, this one's fascinating. This one's super cool. A company out of Danbury, Connecticut. And basically it's called REA. And they developed a technology that captures what's called fog. Fog is basically all the oil and grease and stuff that comes out of restaurants and hotels. And it goes through the wastewater treatment plants. And when it collects at the wastewater treatment plants, it creates this like foam and this wax and this gross, yucky film. And they capture that at point and turn it into biodiesel, clean burning, efficient fuel.
That's awesome.
Correct. And so
super cool. Doesn't even get close.
So what does this mean? So environmental remediation. You're able to take an unknown, unmeasured contaminant that is in our water. And then when they do capture it, if they can't put it in the landfill, they have to burn it using propane. So it creates carbon dioxide. So it's poisoning our air, it's polluting our water. And now we're taking that contaminant and turning it into clean, efficient burning biodiesel fuel. Now, what does that also do? It also creates something from nothing, where you can now help solve county budget deficits by turning something that was a problem into a revenue stream. It's genius.
It is genius.
It's genius.
It is.
And so we're working with Jacksonville, we're working with county up in Michigan, and soon, hopefully, every single country and county will adopt this technology to remove fog from their system, because we're always going to have hotels and restaurants and other things that produce this stuff. It's not going away.
It's not.
Yeah, that's you turn that into a resource.
Correct.
Actually, what I
raw
love
material.
about this is that if our audience is able to catch it, Forrest is using data, and through data you're then identifying a problem, and through solving the problem you have created these massive opportunities for investors by using a fund. That's what I love.
Exactly. And we partner with universities, about a dozen or so of them, and we help educate students and work with professors to help push these technologies, these ideas into our society. Another example very quickly is called Go Eco.
Go Eco.
Yeah, so there's a term called forever plastics. It's on average, they say the average human being consumes about a credit card worth of plastics in a year's time. Through all of your food, through your liquids, right? That's why they have like BPA-free plastic water bottles.
But by consuming, you said you
ingest
we
it.
swallow it.
Correct.
A credit card worth of plastic into our bodies.
Every year.
No wonder why we have so many chronic diseases here.
Correct. And so we've helped develop a technology using graphene oxide that basically strengthens the use of paper by 70% and creates a water-resistant film that is biodegradable and unharmful to human beings. So that's coming too. So every single Starbucks coffee cup that you see has a lining on the interior. What is that lining? It's a wax, it's a coating, it's plastic. There's stuff in it. What do you put into it? Boiling hot coffee. What's that do? It leaches. Right?
Right.
But that's the low-cost solution of last year's technology. And we're going to help replace all of that with something that doesn't harm you. And it's cheap, it's inexpensive. I shouldn't call it cheap. It's inexpensive, and it strengthens paper, so you can use less material. Imagine if you can enhance something's strength and make it more water resistant by 70%.
It's incredible. It amazes me from just this short conversation how much good can come out of this, because it's a very uplifting cycle.
It is.
You are investing in these projects that have a clearly stated mission.
Yes.
And you are generating jobs, you're generating more wealth.
Correct.
And you're opening new opportunities for otherwise untenable objectives.
Correct.
So I think it's
we're raising $50 million, and we anticipate that after 5 years we'll be able to at least 3x that number. So we'll take $50 million, we'll turn it into $150 million, pay back their investors on that return, and look how much good we're going to do with that money. In addition, as good Christians, we tithe 10% off the top.
As good Christians, that's really important.
Yeah.
Transmitir el mensaje de lo que estamos hablando con Forrest ahora, quizá lo importante es que nos demos cuenta la cantidad de bien que él está haciendo, invirtiendo, lo que estamos hablando es la cantidad de bien que él está haciendo, invirtiendo capital de inversionistas en ideas que lo único que le van a dejar es un mejor mundo a la humanidad. Esto es lo que queremos transmitirles. Es un placer tener a alguien como Forrest con nosotros. It's a real pleasure having you here, Forrest.
And to finish, Forrest,
Yes.
I think it's your first time in Central America.
It is. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
No, we appreciate it.
This is your house.
Yeah, this is our
Thank you.
this is your house.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming down here. Thank you in name of our audience. It's been really great having you here in Guatemala, and we hope that everybody benefits from. I always say this is the land of opportunities.
It is.
There's so much to do down here.
Yes.
There are investors down here, and we could just get inspiration from whatever you have done in the United States and just try to permeate it here in Guatemala and Central America and build great things through funds.
Through funds.
Absolutely. And as you lift the floor, we will also raise the ceiling.
There's no other way.
That's it. Amen.
Ok,
Thank you.
Gracias a todos.
Gracias.
Gracias por estar acá. Gracias. Espero que este es uno de esos episodios que les sugiero que lo vean una y otra vez. Hay muchísima información. Yo en lo particular, y estoy seguro que Santiago también, quisiéramos quedarnos semanas platicando con Forrest. Nos honra mucho estar en este programa. Nos encanta estar creando lo que estamos creando. No estamos aquí por el dinero. Parte de, sí, ¿verdad? O sea, les mentiríamos si no, pero nos gusta mucho el dinero. Pero la parte educativa, lo que estamos tratando de hacer por nuestro país y por los países en donde ya estamos operando en Centroamérica, esto es algo que no existía y está al alcance de todos. Nos vemos en el próximo episodio. So, thanks again for being here, and hope to have you again sometime soon in Guatemala. And hopefully we will be able to have some new emerging fund managers from Guatemala.
We definitely will. I have no
Gracias
doubt.
a todos. Gracias, Forrest.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Forrest.
Cheers.